Is it okay with you if I use the audio and the video? Like I'm gonna put the video on YouTube, and then I'm also have this goes out on just the plain old audio platforms too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really appreciate that, Dan.
I
Thank you.
always like to ask permission. I should get
Thank
better
you.
at saying that up front, but you look fantastic. Sometimes people come in their nightgown, and they're not necessarily expecting to be recorded.
I
Not
get
not too often.
it. Thank you.
Oh, right. It's always a little like a shift gear and put my podcaster helmet on. It takes up breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spiritual Underground podcast. As always, I am your host, Dan Reeves. I'm an alcoholic running up on 10 years of sobriety. Um, this podcast, if you're just bouncing along to it, is primarily 12-step recovery. If you go delving into the library, what you're going to hear is people who have recovered telling their story. But I also have these wonderful opportunities that the universe brings me where I have guests come in to help us learn new tools in our toolbox on how we can do this thing that's maintain our spiritual fitness and how we can continue to grow spiritually in our lives. Bill Wilson tells us that if we don't do those two things, we will not stay sober. And as get to say here lately, week to week, I just continue to get introduced to these guests who are out there being a force for the good in the world. And yeah, you look into certain places and you watch certain TV shows, and you'd think that the world's going to hell in a handbasket. But I keep on me running into these souls who are out helping people and doing
Yeah.
just the opposite. And I'm 100% convinced that the light will always win over the dark. And well, our job is just to keep on shining the light, carrying our particular messages of healing. My guest today is I almost was going to mess it up. Ayla Shepherd. She is the author of a book called The Truth Trip: Healing Trauma and Disease Through the Gift of Psychedelic. That was it, psychedelic wisdom. How are you doing today, Ayla? We just
I'm
got to
great.
chatting a
Thank
little
you
bit,
so
so we
much,
kind of like
Dan.
start over. Uh,
Yeah.
that is a thing, is
Absolutely.
that we get too much small talk going on in the beginning, and I miss
Yeah.
content. And then in a little bit you'll be saying something, you'll say like I've already said, and it
Yeah, I get
almost think I
it.
should hit the record button when you enter the room sometimes.
No,
So
but
tell
thank
us
you
a little
so
about you.
much. Sure, I will. Thank you. And thank you, Dan, so much for this opportunity. And, I love the ethos of what you do and the authenticity that you bring to this work and to this movement. So thank you so much for allowing me to be part of it. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And maybe a little bit before I go into what I do and what the book is about, I do have, I guess, a little story, I suppose, about the 12-step program myself. And like I grew up in an alcoholic household, so my dad was an alcoholic, and he, I guess it was all I knew growing up. I thought it was normal, and the conflict between him and my mom, and just that kind of constant tension in our home. But he went to a 12-step program when I was a teenager. And, I don't have a lot of memories, I think, as a child and as a teenager. But one of the major memories that I have is when he went through that atonement process. So I went to visit him in the rehab center, and he took me for a walk, and he apologized over something really big, and I still, the memories of that are so vivid, and it absolutely changed our relationship. And it was, I think I was about 12, and I was these Millennium 50p coins had come out in Ireland at that time, and I was really excited, and I was like, I had this beautiful coin collection, and I was going to save it, and it was going to be like my little investment, and I had it in a little blue security box with a little key. And he came home one night, and he stole my money. He stole that, and for alcohol. And so when I went to meet him in the rehab center, that's what he apologized over. And it was, I think it allowed us to actually have a relationship, and to heal a lot of what had been, I suppose, created because of alcoholism. And so the 12-step program for me is so powerful. It's so meaningful. It's so significant. So thank you for the work that you're doing to bring not just a 12-step program to a wide audience, and make it really accessible for people, but also for, you know continuing to expand the toolkit, as you were saying, and go deeper and deeper into the layers of uncovering who we are, releasing and healing our trauma and growing and deepening spiritually. So thank you for what you do. And I just wanted to share that because it's really important for me too.
Did he maintain his sobriety?
He did up until his death. Yeah, he did.
Awesome.
He did.
Very cool. Very
cool. He did.
Not all do.
But there was exactly. But there was a lot more work for him to do that he didn't do. So he passed away of lung cancer when he was about 64, and from some of the work that I do, I look at the metaphysics of disease and what's the emotional connection with different diseases that show up in our body. And my book is about my own journey of colon cancer and how that led to a lot of healing and a lot of uncovering of trauma. But in my dad's case, lung cancer is often associated with stored sadness and stored grief. And for sure, that was him. He had a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, a lot of bitterness that he stored. And, this was 20, 30 years ago in Ireland, where we're doing so much better now when it comes to mental health and especially supporting men with mental health. But when he was 30, 40, 50, 60, there wasn't really any space for him. So he got all that help from the rehab center and the treatment program. But then after that, there were no men's groups that he could tap into. I don't think there was, even like weekly meetings that he could go to. They weren't that accessible where we were living, and he needed that. He needed to keep going deeper with his healing journey, and look at what happened in his own childhood, because of course, we know that addictions. At least my viewpoint is that there's pain associated with that. It's a coping mechanism. It's a tool that we use to enable us to get through these difficulties in life. And in my dad's case, he had a difficult upbringing with his parents. He wanted to race cars all his life. That's what he wanted to do from when he was very young. But his parents had a farm and they forced him to stay home and look after the farm. So he had all of this frustration with not being able to live his authentic life and beaten by his own father. So a lot of anger and sadness that would have been stored. And in Ireland at that time, there was no outlet for that. So it was just, I feel all this pain. Everybody around me is drinking, so I'm just going to drink and keep drinking until that I numb that pain. So continuing, I think, like what you're doing, I suppose the work that I'm doing and a lot of the other guests that you have on, continuing to explore our pain, our trauma in different avenues, all these different healing modalities. It's so important, for anybody kind of going through 12-step programs.
And not, I'm very blessed, and I know that I've landed in a men's group that is actually able to look at this kind of stuff and work on it. And with my sponsor is kind of the leader of the group, so to speak, the elder, let's say, and he brings that stuff to the table and gives us permission to work on those things and deal with them. And not all groups around here do that. We have over 500 meetings a week in Louisville, Kentucky area. There's not a time of the day. I've been to a meeting this morning, but you won't find that depth everywhere, and especially if you go back in Alcoholics Anonymous to back in when your dad, even if he was in the most progressive AA group that he could possibly get a hold of, they wouldn't be touching on what happened to you when you were a little kid. That's off limits.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And understandably, there's a right container for that. But it's so I studied with Gabor Maté. So I did the compassionate inquiry program. And for me, that was just transformative. And I had studied a few other modalities before that, but with Gabor's work, it was just like a light bulb. It was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, I've read a bunch of his books, and what else? The one that was the one that's fairly old, the addiction, something about golly, it's something. Golly, I can't remember
There's
what
one
it is
that's
now.
In the realm of hungry ghosts,
That's it.
is one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've run into it quite a few years ago. I'm an audiophile, man. I listen to
Me
podcasts and
too.
audio books just constantly. I usually click out close to
Yeah.
100 books a year, and I bumped into him just like
Wow.
out of the blue some years ago, and I was like, wow. So then I'm going in a rabbit hole on him and looking up everything.
Absolutely.
And of course, like today, he is, he's everywhere. My
Yeah.
sponsor quotes him quite often and brings his work to the table in his treatment center too.
Beautiful. 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 That's wonderful because Gabor's mantra is not why the addiction, but why the pain,
Yeah,
and I think that's really beautiful. And it, the modality that he teaches is compassionate inquiry, and it's just such the correct term for what he teaches. It's a really compassion, empathy led approach,
yeah,
to
yeah.
helping us uncover the root cause. So yeah, it's
Yeah, and
beautiful. And
God or the universe or whatever made like this perfect little human that delivers it so beautifully and so eloquently
yes.
that you could just like trust everything he's saying immediately.
Absolutely. And I think what drew me to him was because over the years I'd learned from different people and followed different, I don't know, gurus, teachers, whatever we might call them. But the thing that drew me most to Gabor was his authenticity. When he speaks, he's very open about his own failings and shortcomings, as a parent, as a husband, as a human. And I think when somebody is able to communicate with that level of authenticity, there's immense power in that, and that touches us at a very different level than somebody just coming along and going, oh, this is, do this and your life will be changed. There's a very different energy with that, and that certainly drew me most to him. Yeah. And I suppose on my own journey, it's been on a real journey of figuring out who I am, and finding out how to live authentically also, because growing up with that family dynamic of alcoholism and an emotionally avoidant mother, I never felt seen or heard or acknowledged or loved. So then my personality developed these coping mechanisms to be able to survive in the world, and one of the main ones was the suppression of emotions and people pleasing. So I was always very nice and very charming and could kind of get on well with whoever I was around, but it was, I never felt, I suppose, safe to truly express what I was thinking or what I was feeling. And in my 20s and 30s, I traveled a lot and spent quite a bit of time, in the US. And I was always very, I suppose, captivated by a lot of, people that I met on my travels who would just very freely just share their, opinions. I don't like this, I like that, and disagree with people. And, I would be in conversations, hearing arguments and disagreements and thinking, oh my gosh, that's so bad. How can they say that and offend all these people, And then through my own journey, I realized, well, my response was just a trauma response. I was in a massive people pleasing pattern and never really expressing the truth of who I was. So, I suppose my journey, I suppose, really started with a cancer diagnosis. A few years ago in 2021, I was just diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer.
Oh,
And I was living in Dubai, and I was, 42, vegan. I worked out. I thought I was like really healthy. I meditated. I did all these spiritual practices. I had a good corporate job. I looked after my son. I thought I was doing all the right things. And then I'm in the surgeon's office hearing, I've got a massive tumor in my colon. And I just was going, what on earth is going on? What's happening? And I had surgery to remove it, but there was metastasis, so they were suggesting I do chemotherapy. But I had just finished Gabor's Compassionate Inquiry course, and another one of the books that he wrote was called When the Body Says No. So I'm sitting across from these surgeons going to see oncologists, but my head is screaming, my body is saying no for a reason, and I have to find out why my body is saying no and what it's saying no to. So I kind of, I did the surgery, but then I said no to the chemo and had an oncologist that pretty much told me I was crazy and I was going to die if I didn't do chemo. But something in me was like, I have to get to the root cause of this. I have to figure out why my body manifested this in the first place. And because if I don't do that, then I'm not going to heal it. If I don't get to the root cause, I can mask it with drugs and with treatment, but the root is still going to be there, and it will probably come back again or maybe get worse. So yeah, kind of went on a journey of trying to figure that out, and it brought me to having to face what I had been avoiding for a long time, because even though I was trained as a therapist and working with clients, I had built up a defense mechanism. My mind had built up a very, very clear defense mechanism, preventing me from looking at my own trauma and the depths of it. And, I looked at the metaphysics of colon cancer. As I was saying earlier with my dad, lung cancer is often linked to stored sadness and grief and bereavement. With colon cancer, and especially the ascending colon, where my tumor was, that's linked with anger, with the suppression of anger. And because I created this personality that was always nice and people pleasing, in my perspective, being angry was just the wrong thing to do. So, but I didn't have the tools to even acknowledge that or to express it in a healthy way. So it just suppressed it all in my body.
Yeah.
And so kind of with a lot of introspection and going, forcing myself to go deeper with the help of different therapists, I had to go and look at where a lot of that anger was coming from. And a lot of it did go back to childhood,
I think it
having
all
experienced,
goes back to childhood.
right? Completely, and just there was no space for any emotional expression. So if I was frustrated or scared or expressed any kind of anger, it was just shut down, because my parents didn't know how to deal with that, because they were dealing with their own stuff that they didn't know how to deal with. So they couldn't deal with their own pain and emotional vulnerability, so they didn't know how to deal with mine. So absolutely, it all got kind of trapped and stored inside. So I did quite a bit of therapy. I went to other compassionate inquiry therapists. I went to some shaman. I went to other people who kind of specialize in inner child healing, and felt safe in those environments to be able to do the work that I needed to do to release that. And I think it was knowing that I wasn't going to do chemotherapy. It forced me to push through those internal defenders that were blocking me from doing that kind of work beforehand. And I suppose the other thing that supported all of that work at that time was psychedelics, was plant medicine. I when I was younger, I was so scared of anything that we would consider a drug. I never tried cannabis. I was in my 20s and I would drink a lot, but I never tried any other substance. And so it was quite a bit later in my life when somebody introduced me to ayahuasca. And I was quite hesitant and nervous and thought, oh my gosh, am I going to get hooked on drugs now? What's going to happen if I take this? But my first experience was nothing but love and wisdom. And I was shown, it was almost like I was brought back and flown over this kind of trajectory of my life from when I was a child and then in my 20s and older. And it showed me how a lot of what I had become, a lot of what my personality had become, was just adaptation. It was just a coping mechanism based on what I was experiencing in the environment, and I was absorbing fear from the environment and absorbing anger and keeping it in my body. And towards the end of that journey, that first journey, it connected me with God. Uh, and I had this experience of feeling for the first time ever what the energy of God was like, and that I was part of that. And I came out of that experience going, oh my gosh, like, what is this? I thought, drugs were supposed to be bad, and I thought, I was going to get high, and then I was going to be hooked forever. And the experience that I had was nothing like that. It was deeply, deeply spiritual and healing. And it got me, curious and open. And so I started to occasionally work with other types of plant medicine, with wachuma, which is a cactus, with psilocybin, and the insights and wisdom that it gave me. I absolutely credit that to why I'm here today and why I'm cancer free. And one of the journeys that I did, when I was going through, my recovery after the tumor was removed, after I had surgery, when I was doing all of the kind of diving into the emotional clearing and healing work, I had an experience with psilocybin, which, because I was at this stage in Dubai where I knew I couldn't go back to my corporate job anymore.
Mhm.
And I knew I needed to leave and do something different. And the medicine had a lot of journeys prior to that had been, showing me that the work that I needed to do, that I needed to go back and do full-time therapy work and do healing work and completely stay away from the corporate environment. But I was too scared to heed that advice at the time.
Mhm.
But then, after kind of having cancer, I thought, well, it's either do all this scary stuff or have to go get chemotherapy. So I just don't really have a choice anymore. I need to go do this. But I wasn't sure, what to do. So I had a journey with psilocybin, and all it did was show me Ireland, show me green. It showed me that I needed to go back to nature to heal my body,
Mhm.
and I needed to go back and connect with my family, and do that healing. So that was, I guess, probably about a year after I was diagnosed. And so I made the shift, and I'd been living in Dubai for 12 years. So I kind of packed up and left very quickly with my son, and we came back to Ireland. And that was about 2 years ago. And absolutely the, the nature here I didn't know how stressed I was until I started going for walks and sitting down and meditating in the forest, and starting to feel my body relax, and feel and sense my heart rate normalizing. I think I had just been in fight or flight continually, living in Dubai in a high stress corporate environment, and the energy of that city itself is very harsh. It's not a soft, gentle, caring, nurturing place to be. And that's what Ireland has been for me. But probably one of the biggest things about coming back here has been, healing the relationship with my mother. It
Mhm.
was That was the root of everything,
Mhm.
my mom and my dad, and my experience as a child with them. So being back home, we've had some really difficult conversations. I've opened up and shared things that I kept inside for a really long time, and told her things that she wasn't aware of. And thankfully, because she's done a lot of her own counseling work, she was able to hear it, and able to respond to it. So I'm quite blessed, um, for that. And
It's interesting to
yeah,
watch people get on these healing journeys like that, and then these doors open, and that's one of the bigger things. And it's one of the things I see all the time in 12-step recovery. We have that 9 step amends where you go and make things right, own your stuff. And when you do that, this whole door opens up for this healing in this particular relationship. And then you go do it over here and it opens up. And all those are just little blossoms because
yeah,
it will grow. And like
absolutely.
have, I don't know how, 3 or 4 years sober, I just got enchanted by yoga. And
Wow.
So much so that I went to yoga teacher training and became a yoga instructor. And
That's
when I did
amazing.
that for myself, and I like what I like to say is, if 10 years ago, if you told me I'd be doing yoga, I'd punch you in the nose because I thought you was calling me a sissy, you know.
Yeah,
And
I get
but
it. That's
where it gave
amazing.
me one point of the one really thing that, like a mantra, so to speak, is that my true north compass. I have to get my compass needle pointed in my true north. And when I do that, things start working out. It's like I'm
Yeah.
going upstream otherwise, and I'm fighting things, and everything just seems difficult. But when I turn
Yes.
down into the stream of the direction of who I really am, I like to say the skids are greased. Everything just smooths along. And those
I love
relationships,
that.
like with your mother, when
Yeah.
you have that
Yeah.
hard conversation, because when you go do amends with your mom, it's not easy. I don't
Nope.
care who you are, and but
Exactly.
that's the fertilizer that will allow that seed to grow, that can repair a relationship, and allow that relationship to blossom.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I talk to people and I
Uh,
see this, that, like, we're all speaking the same language, or all the same stuff, but we're doing it in a little bit different ways, but
yeah.
underneath of it is the
Yeah.
same principles that get this stuff where we can have the lives that I believe that God meant us to have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, mentioning God, for me, that's been a really it's been something I think that I've been curious about my entire life, because I grew up in a very, like, a small town in Ireland, very Catholic. You go to church every Sunday and you follow what the priest says. But a lot of the things that I was hearing in church just didn't make sense to my logic mind. And then, I'm sure in Ireland, we had a lot over the last couple of decades come out with just horrific abuse at the hands of the Catholic Church. So, I was kind of questioning a lot. And when I was living in Dubai, I got really curious about the Bible. I thought, this is such an important book in the world. This is, one of the most important books that any of us could be reading. And I want to go read it, and I want to dive into it, and I want to study it. And I went to this Bible study group, and again, there were just parts that didn't quite resonate, I think, with my beliefs and with my values. And I think the one of the pastors at one point said that the reason why women get bad menstrual cramps is because of what Eve did in the Garden of Eden. I'm kind of going, I'm not sure I'm going to take that one. Maybe there's another angle to it. Maybe there's something else to it. So I was curious and questioning and trying to find answers. And again, it might sound weird, but it was psychedelics. I had a journey one time with ayahuasca, where it brought me up, up and up and up to the light. And it just became part of that light, part of God. And I felt it. It wasn't just words that I was being told that my cognitive brain needed to somehow digest. I could feel it fully in my body, and it
Yeah,
felt like I was just being filled with unconditional love.
yeah,
And that's something I think that has been unbelievably critical in my life, not just with my healing journey, but with my journey to be who I am and just to show up in this world. Because I felt like, when I experienced what that unconditional love actually felt like, it was like as if it closed a gap or a hole that I had in my body. And I think because of my childhood trauma, in my 20s and 30s, I was going through all these awful relationships, just attracting all these men that were just reflecting my experience as a child, not being seen, not being heard, not being loved, not being validated, not being wanted, all this. So I was just recreating my childhood experience through these other relationships. But I was constantly seeking to feel loved. I was constantly seeking validation from a guy, and to be seen. And when I had that experience with plant medicine of just feeling unconditionally loved, that need, that seeking, that, being online, being on Tinder, trying to find date, like that just left. It's like, okay, I don't need that anymore. If somebody shows up, then that's great, but I don't need it in the same way that I did before. And I used to have that need, and I used to just go and drink too much, and then be hungover and trying to take care of a young kid at the weekend when it's just awful for me and awful for him. And I say it a lot to clients, but plant medicine, psychedelics have absolutely made me a better mom, because it's taught me what love feels like, what it sounds like, and so I'm able to offer that to my son.
It's the best,
And it's just been beautiful.
Uh,
Yeah.
the
And I
universe
have
has sent
this,
me a lot of men to sponsor, because that's another thing that I must do. I must give this away to keep it in order to maintain my sobriety. And the very best thing about sponsoring these men, and most of them are much younger than me, and a lot of them have small kids, or actually have
yeah,
had kids since I started working on them, is they're raising their kids in an entirely different way,
exactly.
and that's really,
Exactly.
I was like, it was good that Dan here got sober at 45 years old. My kids were already 8 and 10, and I wasn't a
Yeah.
monster dad, but as there's no way that I can't be the dad then that I can be
Mm,
today. But like with these
yeah.
guys I get to help, their kids are just being born, and I'm getting to watch them,
Yeah.
well, how do we not break the little kids, right? So we don't have
Yeah.
to fix them later
Yeah.
on, like me and
Yeah.
you. Uh, you know,
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
that's a trick, and it
And
is the
it's,
warmest thing that I have. I am the godfather of one of my sponsees' 3-year-old little son. He calls me Uncle
wow.
Dan, and he asks about me all the time, and we have a relationship. And he is such a cool little boy because his dad is allowing
Yeah.
him to grow up and maintain his spirit. We say this thing in here about
Yeah.
we're spiritually sick is why we drink. Spiritually ill.
Yeah.
It's gotten stomped.
Yeah.
I have footprints on my spirit, and I'm
Yeah.
watching this little boy get to grow up and with the spirit protected by his parents, and it's so
Wow.
beautiful,
Wow.
so beautiful.
Wow.
But
And
there's
it's
people like
so
me and you that have
necessary.
to do this other thing where we gotta go do this healing work.
But it's so necessary, because if you look at, you know, the way the world is right now, and the people that are causing the most pain to others in the world are little children that have been deeply
Yep,
traumatized,
those spiritually sick
and
folks.
absolutely. So the work that you're doing, and especially with men, is so critical and so important. And I often say to people that we get trained for all these jobs in life, right? We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in education, but the most important job that any of us who have children in this life is being a parent, and it's
Yep.
it's it's raising those children and shepherding them in a way that they can just express the truth of who they are, without needing to express the result of a traumatic upbringing, and a
The
dysfunctional
other side of that
environment.
the other side of that, like being who I am, is also like shedding everything that I am not. That's really what it
Yes,
is pushing all this off of me
absolutely.
that I am not. And we don't
Yes.
put that on these kids. And
Yeah.
I'm doing my best to repair that in my 19-year-old daughter and my 21-year-old son. And I've already seen them be better just because their dad got sober. I see that in them
Absolutely.
already just for that. But I
Yeah.
also get to give them permission to live their lives and not be, you know, telling them what, yeah. These guys I run into, their dad wanted them to be this. Their dad wanted them to
Yeah.
be a lawyer, and that's not what they wanted to be. So now the dad's like punished them all their life because they wouldn't be
Yeah.
and just all this
Exactly.
noise that does that. Let me ask you something about these plant medicines. That's
Yeah.
sticky ground for a guy like me. Uh,
Yes. Yeah, I get it.
I'm not saying
I
it's
get it.
bad. I'm not saying that at
Yeah.
all. And I had taken enough acid to kill an elephant over my lifetime. When I was young, it was for years.
Wow.
It was my favorite drug, man. You
Yeah.
had to. you couldn't just go out on Friday night and drop some acid. You had to plan to go drop some acid because you had to do some stuff to make all that work out.
Right.
And most of the
Yeah.
time, and I'm really connected to nature too. I have a place out, fortunate enough that we got about 50, I don't know if it'll make sense to you, but some 50 acres of ground in up against the Hoosier National Forest. That's the Indiana
Right.
National Forest. And my dad, my brother, and I built a log cabin in 1999
Oh,
out there.
beautiful.
And
Amazing.
it's my place. It's the cordless tools, the drills and stuff. They got the
Yeah.
battery. I'm the battery,
Yeah.
and that place is my charger.
Amazing.
And I have to
Wow.
get out there and I spend as much time as I can out there. I actually have men's retreats out there, and we do a fifth step, which is a one-on-one kind of confessional of getting all the skeletons out of
Yeah.
the closet. It's not really confession. It's
Yeah.
not that, but it's
Yeah.
most think most
Yeah.
people. I take my guys out there and we spend the night and do it in that safe location.
Amazing.
So that outdoor stuff. So what I would trip on, I said, that's where I like to do it. We would like to go out to a campground or go into the
Yeah.
forest someplace and do it. And I've had some very
Yeah.
spiritual experiences, I can say today, dropping acid. But
Yeah.
obviously in the States, that's illegal.
Exactly. I
And
know.
so are
I
all
know.
these other drugs that you were talking about,
Yeah.
psilocybin and ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca.
Where did you do these things?
Oh, ayahuasca in Dubai, which
You
is of
can do it
course,
there.
it was underground. It wasn't
It
legal,
is still
but
black market.
yeah, but also in South Africa where it is legal, it comes under this I think religious freedom umbrella. So if you
Ah,
set up
yeah.
a church and then it's part of that, then it's okay.
That's
But
kind of the
also in
same way it is in
Peru and in the
South
Netherlands.
America, I think,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah,
under
I've
that
been there
spiritual
too.
teacher stuff. Because that's the thing is
Yeah,
access to this stuff, and
yeah,
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and for whatever reason, I think it's some fantasy I had as a boy. I wanted to be a jet pilot or a Navy SEAL or something like that when I was
right.
a little boy.
Yeah,
And now I listen to all
yeah.
these Navy SEAL podcasts and these Special Forces, Delta Force, all these badass dudes from the States that went down that path. And I like it, but
Yeah,
they come back with huge amounts of trauma, right? When your best friend, heads
absolutely.
get blown off right next to you, how do you deal with that?
Horrific.
Uh,
Horrific.
and
Huge
that nine
PTSD.
times out of 10, that is what allows them. And they will say they've gone to South America or someplace.
Yeah.
I don't know if they really are going where they're saying they're going. They might be going
Yeah.
in Atlanta. I don't know, but they're had to go out of the country and making a huge expense to get this growth, to
Yeah.
have this experience. It's just
Yeah.
not accessible to
Yeah.
most people. You're not going to get addicted to that. I didn't ever get addicted to acid. I mean, I liked it a whole lot, but that's just not something like ayahuasca. I understand it's really not that pleasant. It's
It's not.
lightning, but so
I
you're not going to
know.
like want to do it again tomorrow.
And
uh,
you're absolutely not. And there's, I think pharmacologically it works, the psychedelics work a little bit of a different way in the brain. So they don't activate the dopamine receptors. So we're not looking for that next hit. It works with the 5-HT2A serotonin receptor. And so that, is one thing that prevents addiction, but also, as you completely rightly said, it's not a pleasant experience. Half the time you're bent over a bucket and you're vomiting your guts out and you're like, why am I doing this?
that's
But
what I keep
then you
hearing about
get these,
ayahuasca specifically. Yeah. And then what's the
yeah,
other one?
yeah.
DMT,
Uh,
what's MEO
um,
something?
yeah, 5-MeO-DMT.
There you go.
Yes, exactly. And then you've got Wachuma or San Pedro, which is the cactus, and that's a
Yeah,
different experience as well. It's a bit more gentle.
there was something I remember that was some other hallucinogenic that's like from Mexico that's cactus, and I can't remember what the name is of what they
Yes,
called it, but
yes. Peyote, I think.
peyote. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of distance my mind from all that stuff, because it's just
And
not
it's
on the
it's
table for me that often to be talking about it. And
yeah.
I was a pain pill addict, opioid addict, and
Okay.
alcohol. Those were my two things. Although
Yeah.
I'd done lots of other drugs growing up, but those are the ones that
Yeah.
brought me down. I ended up.
Yeah.
I supported about you know, this time frame thing, like this veil that's like pre sober Dan and post sober Dan. It's a weird thing. Like time
Yeah.
does not make sense anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
I had supported an 8 to 10 year opioid habit without spending any money. I was breaking in houses, stealing it, and
Right.
and
Right.
I finally got caught. And the
Okay.
judge here in my little New Albany town told me that sentencing guidelines for the crimes I had committed was 6 to 20 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections. And that
Whoa.
scared me because I don't know
Oh
that I
my
really wanted
gosh.
to get sober, but I didn't
Yeah.
want to go to prison. And I knew that
Yeah.
not getting sober would be counteractive to not going to prison.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
ultimately, like with most of us, we have to hit that proverbial bottom and facing that jail
Absolutely.
time. And somehow or another, when my compass needle, when I swung it over in the direction I needed to be going, things started happening. I didn't spend any time. I was on home incarceration I got sentenced to a year of home incarceration, a year of probation, and a third year
Okay.
put on a shelf for if I successfully completed the first two. And
Right.
and once I started getting these miracles happening in my life, I started seeing God working, and that similar to what you're talking about. I started feeling God, and that's what the big book tells you. The purpose of that book is to get you in touch with a power greater than yourself that can
Yeah.
solve all your problems. That's a quote,
Yeah.
and
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, and it has.
Yeah.
So once that all happened, everything started going, and once you get some of that, you don't want nothing else, right?
Exactly.
Once you
Yeah.
start getting some of that, I'm not messing this up by drinking again or by
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
anything. But out of all the drugs, and I liked most of the ones I did, or I had not would not have done them as long and as hard as I did. The one that still tickles the back of my neck is hallucinogens.
Yeah.
And I still think about it. I
Yeah.
still go, man, that was fun. Uh,
And it's I think I think our culture is trying to figure out what the right container is to work with these substances in a way that it is helpful, it is healing, it is allowing the capability of these substances to do what they can do for us. That it's not just, oh, I'm gonna, I've never had a recreational psychedelic experience. It's always been in some kind of ceremonial setting, and that
mm,
feels right for me. And my intention is to heal, to learn, to evolve, to grow, and that's what I bring to it. Now, I do hear obviously people have a wonderful time, and when you do these substances recreationally, and it's something I do want to do at some point. It's just that I haven't yet. But I think we are trying to find, we know that these substances have this capacity for healing and even for helping us with struggles with addiction, with disease, with all sorts of challenges that we might face. But how are we going to do it in the safest way?
yeah, yeah,
And if we look at South American cultures, typically they'll do it you have a shaman who's facilitating, you'll have a group of elders who really understand the medicine, who understand more than just the pharmacology, but also the spiritual aspects of the medicine and know how to maintain a safe environment for people.
yeah. Yeah,
Now, I
we
know
even
we've
did
come
that
across stories.
when our acid usage as kids.
Wow.
When a guy was going to do it for the first time, some guys that knew about it would be there with you and coach you through this
Right.
stuff and tell you it's okay when you're flipping out. And so
Yeah.
I laugh at that when I hear these stories about having these shamans because we were kind of like
That's
times
what we
I
were.
played a pseudo shaman, on a guide to
Absolutely.
allow somebody to have a good
Absolutely.
trip.
Absolutely. Yeah. And keep them safe.
Yep, keep them safe. Yep, that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
I totally understand. I hear it quite often on
Yeah.
those mostly military guys because that's just where I'm at about exactly
Yeah.
what you're talking about a really safe ceremonial type of experience where you are
Yeah.
it's a controlled thing
Exactly.
and
And I
how to
think
do that.
one model that seems to be emerging is this psychedelic assisted therapy model. And I think it's growing, it's emerging. I don't think, we've kind of hit on an absolute perfect formula yet, but that seems to be something that's emerging in our cultures, and it's
Perfection's not achievable.
well, it's exact, yeah, from a legal perspective, but I think from a healing, a therapeutic perspective, that kind of model seems to work because you're introducing preparation and integration along with the actual medicine journey itself, where the medicine journey is part of a therapeutic healing process. It's part of it. It's not, it's not only it. It's,
You have to do
you
the
have some.
integration portion of it too. You have to, there's
Absolutely.
no like magic pill. You also still have to do the
Absolutely.
work.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that's something that I learned the hard way because, we were in Dubai, we were facilitating some ceremonies underground. I was taking medicine, but I wasn't doing the integration work. I didn't even know really that it was something that we should be doing. And then when my body acted up and I manifested cancer and really started looking into the why, I kind of thought, oh, do you know what? The medicine has been telling me to leave this job. The medicine has been telling me go back and do this work. The medicine has been telling me these things, but I wasn't integrating that. I was kind of going, okay, that's nice, but Monday morning comes, I have to put my suit on, I have to go and do this, HR corporate thing and fire people and just maximize profit for the shareholders.
Yeah,
So
the
it
universe
was
pulled me out of corporate America after 28 years with one company. I worked there for
really
28 years. I worked 24 years as a drug addict alcoholic and 4 years
wow,
into my sobriety, but I know what it was. And that's another
wow,
cool thing about when your compass needle's in alignment. I didn't have
yeah,
the shock. I actually had a premonition the day before I was going to get laid off, and I took and got on my computer at work and
wow,
took all my private stuff and stuck it up on the cloud and packed up
yeah,
all my personal belongings in my backpack on the way out the door.
yeah,
They'd let me
wow,
come back and get my personal belongings, but they're not going to let me back in that computer. Uh,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's again that compass needle getting in the flow and getting hooked up with this higher greater myself allowed me to see that. And it's the best thing ever. Now I'm self-employed.
absolutely,
I do handyman work around town. I love doing it. It's helping people. I
absolutely.
see that. And I got a little wood shop in my backyard too, where I do some custom woodwork and that kind
That's
of thing.
amazing,
And I'm making
amazing.
30 to 40% of what that corporate job paid me, but I was still able to do everything I want to do. And, uh,
Absolutely,
and I'm way happier.
absolutely. And you're healthier,
Yep.
and
I see that these
you're,
guys come in from they work these assembly line jobs at the automotive plant, and it just makes them sick. It just kills them,
mm,
and they
mm,
cannot let go of that security and retirement and 401
yeah,
and insurance. And they'll
yeah,
sit over there and just be sick day after day after day rather
yeah,
than break free of that.
exactly,
So blessed
exactly.
that the universe plucked me out of there.
And all of your journey was part of that, right? Even your journey with addiction, with having to face, that jail time, that was all part of allowing you to be free and live
Yeah.
authentically and peacefully and healthily.
Yeah. And you see that
Beautiful.
when you get out of it, right?
Yep.
I say, about one of my favorite things is I see life in the rearview mirror. I
Yeah.
don't, but today,
Yeah.
actually living the way I am, I actually get glimpses of being right where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't know if there's many
Yeah.
better feelings than that. Podcasting,
Yeah.
sitting here talking to you is
Yeah.
one of those feelings. It's
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
right where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing today.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it gets better than that, right? Isn't that what we're striving for? So when you think about it, we're kids, society, parents, teachers tell us work hard, study hard, get a good job, get a house, get a family. And ultimately we kind of understand that the intention behind it is so that you can be happy. But I don't think that path leads a lot of us to the perceived end goal. I think we have to come off that path that society is telling us and kind of go, whoa, 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 what's true for me? Where do I find my happiness? Where do I find my peace? And you're finding it doing carpentry, doing some bespoke design stuff, enhancing people's lives in that way. And that gives you the time and the freedom to be able to do this work with your podcast too, and be such a wise elder in your community. I mean,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And when you
I
get
kind of
to the
like
end,
it.
when you get to your deathbed, You're
that elder thing, I still have a little trouble. I'm 55 years old. Uh,
okay.
and
You don't look 55.
yeah, I know. Thank you very much. I like that compliment, and I get it often. It's genetic. My 87-year-old father lives with me. He's
Oh,
upstairs right
wow.
now, and
That's
he's still
amazing.
as active as can be. And he
Yeah.
taught me all these skill sets that when I got laid off this job as an engineer, had no idea what I was going to do. They gave me a good severance package, and for 6 months, I didn't do anything but like 2 yoga sessions a day and
Right.
played.
Right.
And then the universe provided, and I knew that was what was going to happen. I just waited for the door to open. And a realtor friend of mine, who actually happened to be, I'm pretty sure Amy is the first girl I've ever kissed. She was a little girl that lived up the street. Now I'm back in my mom and dad's house. I live in the house that I grew up in. I'm
Yeah.
very grounded, man. My roots go down and I don't move far. Like when you talk
Yeah.
about going to Dubai and going to here and all that, that kind
Yeah.
of digs me up a little bit. But
Yeah.
she was the little girl up the street, and she was needed a job done to help sell a house. And she said, "Could you help me out?" And she knew I was handy. And she said, "Could you help me out and do this?" And I did it. And then she called me again, and then her friends started calling me, and then it just went.
Wow.
Now
Amazing.
I have to purposely take a
Amazing.
day off in order to have time off, but I love this
Wow.
freedom,
Beautiful.
this real true freedom that we get once we actually like get our lives into our domain, where I get to
Yeah.
do what I want. If I don't want to work Tuesday, I
Exactly.
cannot take a job on Tuesday.
Exactly.
In November, I
Exactly.
go
Yeah.
spend 2 weeks straight down at the cabin. It's deer
Yeah.
season, and I pretend to deer hunt. I don't really kill
Yeah.
anything anymore. I don't have much interest in doing that, but I
It's
still
just
love to
nice
go
being
out.
out in nature. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no cell phone out there, no electricity, no
Beautiful.
water. You have to haul your water. Got a little generator if I want some electricity, and
Yeah.
it's just so peaceful and so quiet. You don't hear cars run down the road. You don't hear trains. You don't hear anything. It's just so. You
Yeah.
stand out in the front yard, and it's just silence except for nature, the birds and
Wow.
the animals and the wind blowing and things like that.
So special.
But if I wasn't self-employed like I am right now, I could never do that. And
Yeah.
the universe always
Yeah.
helps give me a
Exactly.
bunch of jobs ahead of that because you don't get paid vacations when you're self-employed, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
But I'm provided for.
Yeah.
When that compass
Exactly.
needle is in alignment, I'm provided for. I don't have to worry about it
Exactly.
too much.
Exactly.
And
So
I hear
beautiful. I
that,
think that's so powerful.
I
Really
think that plant
powerful. And
medicine does that, helps people get that compass needle swung around
yes,
in their true north
it
so that
does.
they can get on their true path.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When we're open to it and when we're ready for it. I've been experiencing something recently, which is kind of interesting. So I feel like my energy, my body, the universe is drawing me in a certain direction. My brain, my ego mind is still, I've got that programming. So I've had this opportunity to work with horses in a therapeutic capacity,
Ah,
and
got some
and it's
experience with that
just,
too.
oh my gosh, so like these creatures are just incredible healers, and they teach us authenticity because they are purely authentic, and they'll reflect our emotions and our
Mhm.
energy. We'll see that reflected in them. And so I'm kind of studying that and learning that and working in that capacity a couple of days a week. But my conscious mind is still, I'm seeing the old programming. I'm seeing should you be doing this? Should you be, focus on it, get another job, go back to go, and I'm
Hustle, hustle,
seeing
hustle.
that dialogue. Yeah, exactly. And I'm observing and listening to what my body is saying, and my body just, even though sometimes it's physical work and mucking at stables, but my body feels really good doing it, and my energy is much wider, much greater when I'm in that environment. So I'm, just learning to notice that pattern, but not identify with it, and have compassion for it and go, I see. Yes, it's been many years of that programming and of that conditioning. I see it, but I'm going to listen to my body, and I'm going to listen to the truth of the universe, and I'm going to listen to the truth of God right now. But I see you. That's okay that you're there.
I'll try to
Yeah.
do this quickly, but so when I hit the bottom and I got divorced and gave away a 17-year marriage, and yeah, for what did I need, right? I needed the next
Yeah.
girl, right? And so I
Right.
found her
Yeah.
on online dating, and she had struck me because she was grossly overweight and she had lost a ton of weight, and I related to that at some level with my alcoholism and
Yeah.
this, and what it took for her to do that, and then what it took, the authenticity for her to come online and say that was her story, intrigued me. And so I met her,
Yeah.
and we dated for a few years. But she had a daughter who was on the spectrum. This little girl was not supposed to live, and I don't really know exactly. But this girl was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years and still was nonverbal.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
somebody offered her the equine therapy,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
broke her voice loose. Was working with
Wow.
horses.
Yeah.
And that's why when I don't
Right.
have direct experience, I just saw a miracle happen as a result of that kind of stuff.
Amazing.
And it wasn't, and that gal was
Amazing.
here the night that we were here at this house the night that I got in trouble, where I got caught.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
had told her, we were sitting on the couch watching TV, and I told her I'll be back in just a minute. And there was a particular old man across the street that always had it. And I break into his house and steal from him. And I didn't come
Yeah.
back home that night until way late because I got caught. The son was
Yeah.
lying in wait for me over there. He hit me with pepper spray in my eyes and laid into
Oh,
me with a ball
wow.
bat, with a baseball bat. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Oh
it was
no.
and I laugh. I can laugh. Yeah, what looked like to be the worst thing could ever happen to a guy like me turned out to be the best thing that could happen to
Mm,
me. I mean, I look back at
mm,
it, I can laugh about it today. And I got an opportunity to do
mm.
night stuff amends with that man, with both the
Yeah.
old guy and the son. And me and the son,
Wow.
after him doing after us having that encounter, and it was totally by accident, if you believe in accidents. But when I was able
Mm,
to do amends with that guy, we ended up standing across a chain link fence talking and crying when I was able to
that's
tell him
amazing.
that I was, and owned my stuff and told him that we have a formula for the amends. And when I did it, there was an EPO. I couldn't contact the family for 3 years. If I went into a restaurant and they were there, I would need to leave. Uh,
Mm,
but after
mm.
that 3 years was up, uh, universe, God, whatever, brought us both together, and we were able to heal that. And
Amazing.
it's just so many beautiful things, so many miracles as a result of this program. And I have a miracle
Yeah.
list, and my listeners are going to get tired of me hearing it, but I like to share it with my guests. Uh,
Absolutely.
where some really unanswered stuff started happening in my early recovery, like not going to prison.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
Courts didn't care that Dan got sober. They were there to punish him for the crimes he had committed.
Mm,
But when I didn't, and then I was supposed to do home incarceration, they didn't want me to do it here because I was breaking in that house across. I got caught breaking in that house across the street. Broke into lots more they don't know about, but uh, and I was allowed to do home incarceration here by some clerical error by the court, and just the stuff. And my sponsor told me you should start writing that stuff down
yeah.
because later on you're going to forget about it. Some memory
Yeah.
would prompt it, and I'd remember. But now I have a record of it. And I call it my miracle
Yeah.
list.
That's
All these
beautiful.
all these cool little things that have happened as a result of that change in my compass needle.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Just that
And I want
trajectory
to,
shift.
and now my
Beautiful.
main goal is to provide that for as many freaking people as I can possibly do that for today.
That's
And I get to watch it.
amazing. Amazing.
My
It's
one
so
year
beautiful.
sponsee just spoke at, that's why I was at a meeting this morning. My guy who just turned one not long ago, who
Yeah.
did not believe in God and fought me as I took him through this process, who couldn't
Wow.
stop drinking. Uh,
Yeah.
he asked to share his story this morning, at the
Wow.
podium at a meeting. So you get to go over and sit there and almost like proud papa kind of thing of going,
Yeah.
all right. And I keep on doing this work, and things keep on, life keeps on being great.
Doesn't it doesn't it somehow always, I wonder, does it always need that kind of struggle? I think for, your struggle
Yeah.
was the addiction, my dad's struggle was the addiction, my point, what caused me to just have to completely wake up was cancer, right? So we get these struggles in life that we might look at it in that moment and when it happens as being the worst thing ever, but then when we do look back from that rear view mirror we go, well, thank God that happened.
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
Thank God that happened. That was my North Star shift. That's what put me on this direction of actually being able to live truthfully for who I am, and to use my voice truthfully and honestly, and get away from the programming and the conditioning, and just be true to myself. And then when we do that, invariably we are these human beings that just, show up in the world in a way that's able to support and heal other people and help wake other people up, and I
And it hasn't all been,
thank God.
it's not
Mm.
always smooth. I got to always remind me and that, there's still been bumps in the road. My mom passed away when I was 14 months sober. It was a
Wow.
horrible
Yeah.
experience. She was sick for 6 months. She'd had a stroke during a surgery.
Yeah.
And it was rough. And, I was still on home incarceration for the for a piece of that,
That's tough.
and,
That's tough.
when you can't go help dad pick her up off the floor, but, when you're not supposed to, I would still leave and go. And there's another little phrase in the big book says that you're safe and protected when you're working under this program. And I would
Yeah.
call probation and say, hey, look, my mom's on the floor. Dad can't get her up. I'm gonna run over there and pick her up, help dad. I'll be back. I will call you back when I get back home, and I would be as efficient in that effort as I
Yeah.
could and caught no
Yeah.
grief over it, you know. Uh, and my daughter's been struggling with fentanyl. I think
Mm.
she's over the hump, but that was tough too. But I'm able to manage stuff in a completely different energy today
Absolutely.
than I used to. I
Yeah.
don't have to lose my stuff over things, and I also
Yeah.
have that, if that arrest back there happened as a good thing, well, maybe this
Mm.
bad thing that's happening today will manifest as a good thing down the road too. So it can
Mm.
kind of change your mindset about when you do have a
Yeah.
bump in the road. That I can go, well, later on, I'll look in the rearview mirror and I'll understand this
Yeah.
too. But today,
Yeah.
it's not for me to
Exactly.
understand. For me, today, it's for me to
Exactly.
shoot up and show up and do the best I can with the situation.
Absolutely. I was listening to Ramdas for a while recently. I do as part of my maintenance protocol, I do a lot of coffee enemas.
Oh, do you?
And they just it's a bit of a crazy thing, but it's just really good for working with the liver and helping the liver to do its function of detoxing the body. And we're surrounded with so many toxins from our food, from the environment, that for me that part is so important to keep up and to maintain. But I find that when I am lying on the floor in the bathroom doing my coffee enema, I have to keep it in for about 15 minutes. And so I tend to, when I started doing it, it felt like, that it was almost a kind of a spiritual energy. So I would want to listen to spiritual speakers in that 15 minutes lying on the floor in the bathroom. And I was listening to Ram Dass for a while. But he said this thing that really struck me, and I thought it was so beautiful. He said that, we come, we have this lifetime, we have these experiences, and our soul, whatever we want to call it, needs these experiences to learn what it needs to learn so that it continue to grow and evolve. And it's kind of like a Buddhist perspective on things.
Mm-hmm.
And if we really go, into deep Buddhism, then it would kind of say, well, everything is karmic. So the person that is struggling, well, that's their karma. They need to go through that experience. So the person that had an accident and they're in a wheelchair, well, that's karma. That's what that person's soul needs. But Ramdas would say that would, when he really started diving deep into Buddhism, that he just found that perspective. He could understand it, but it was a bit cold. So he said we should have the mind of Buddha, but the heart of Christ, and the heart of
Mm.
Christ being that compassion. It's like, well, somebody is suffering and struggling, and yes, perhaps their soul does need that to learn something that they need to learn in this lifetime. But we're human. We're all in this together. Somebody falls over. If it's in my path, if I can, if it's in my capacity, I'm going to help pick them up. But not view these things in as everything being bad or terrible or awful. Taking that kind of mindset of, well, we don't know. Maybe this could be the best thing for that person. But what's in my capacity to support that person on their journey right now.
It's
And
that old story about the horse and the farmer, and I know you've heard it about.
yes, the Taoist
I love
farmer.
that.
I
It
love it.
touched me big time when I had heard a guy say it on a recovery tape, on a AA recovery tape
Yeah.
about. I don't know if this is good or bad. All I know is that this is what this is, and walk that
Exactly,
story out. And then I try to
exactly,
employ that same kind of thought in my life today too.
exactly. It's beautiful. Has your daughter, what has her experience taught her, do you think, or what do you think it might be teaching her in her journey?
Well, there was some trauma that was. I always wonder about how much to talk about this on there. My grandfather, not my side of the family, the other grandfather had done something to her when she was 12 years old. And we like to say, like one of the exercises we do is go back and get in a photo album and find a
Yeah.
picture of you when the lights are still on, when you're that happy, joyous, and free little
Yeah.
kid. And when that happened to
Yeah.
her, I saw the lights go out and I was
Yeah.
sober. And it was shocking and it was bothersome and
Yeah.
it was I don't know how you rank this kind of stuff. I would suppose the worst case would be losing a child, but this is not a step or two down from what could happen to your daughter. And
That's
the lights
horrific
went
of a
out in
father.
her eyes, and I've done a lot of work on it, but I don't think I will ever not fog up when I talk about this. And I just saw her struggle from there. And then like COVID came, and then she lost her social group and her friends and stuff, and they got all sent home from school and stuff. And I saw the lights go out in another shade, and I know she did the
Mm.
same thing as me. And there's some thought that this addiction alcoholism thing is somewhat genetic too. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh,
A
so
predisposition. Yeah.
so you take that predisposition and you throw trauma in there, and
Absolutely.
you'd be lucky
Perfect
to escape
cocktail.
that without a problem, right? I mean, you would have to have a real
Absolutely.
miracle happen to not have a problem. What I do
100%.
know is she has the dad she needs today with
Yeah.
what's going on. I do know that without a problem, but I also know that I have very little power in actually helping her. So I won't be the one that all I can do is support her and love her. Like she's going to it's her journey.
Absolutely.
And she's
But
done some 12-step work and the lights came back on for a while with the 12-step stuff. But as addicts and alcoholics a lot of times do, and that's kind of why I was tipping around about uh, we get better and then we drop everything that's making us better. We stop doing the
mm,
things, and that's what she did. She stopped doing the things that was making her better. She was getting loved
yeah.
on. She had a support group that was there. And then we
Yeah.
just kind of go, I'm okay. I call it graduating. We've graduated.
Mm,
So I can just turn my little flap over on my hat and keep on living. And at least
yeah.
I know she's not doing fentanyl today, but she's still
Amazing.
toying with substances.
Yeah.
And problem with us, and this is, like I said, I got this dude who is my teacher that is like, I feel like I sit at the foot of a master. I mean, this guy has so much chemical dependency. Ex- he's an expert.
Expert. Yeah.
He's a subject matter expert. Thing is that we will toy around with the stuff that is not our favorite drug of choice, but
Mm,
that will lead us back to what we really want to do. And maybe that
yeah.
won't happen. I don't know, but
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, it's a tough road.
The It's a tough road, but I think one thing that, and Gabor talks about this as well, what makes a difference is one person in our lives that can be with us when we've fallen down the well, who can just be there with us and go, I know this feels really hard right now. I know
Yeah,
this really, really sucks right now, but you're not alone.
yeah, yeah.
And,
And it was my
just,
eighth birthday, my eighth sobriety day. It was January the 1st, 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago. And she texts me and she says, when I saw her text, I thought she was going to be a happy, congratulations, Dad. And she
yeah,
said, I need to talk to you. And I said, well, call me. And she said, no, I need to come see you. And when she come through the door, she was complete tears. And she walked in the door and she told me the truth that she was hooked on fentanyl. And it really wasn't that she was taking fentanyl. She was taking those around here. We got those counterfeit pain pills that are laced with fentanyl. So they're terribly,
oh
terribly,
gosh,
terribly dangerous because each one of them
yeah,
is like spinning a roulette pistol.
oh my gosh,
Because that's what a lot of those overdoses are about is that
right,
the quality control of the pharmacy company is not in these pills. And
Yeah. Yeah.
the fact that I know that she came and told me first before she told her mother, and I saw that's what that was. She knew, that she come and asked for help. And that's exactly what we did. One of the funny things was no treatment center would take her to detox her. She was
What? Why?
17.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. No place around here would take her.
Oh,
So I just cleared my calendar. Me and her mom cleared her calendars,
yeah.
and we
Yeah.
just took it on ourselves. Sucked. It
Yeah.
was not what I wanted to be doing that week.
Yeah.
And she's had a couple fallbacks, but that's what addiction is. Nobody gets it first
Absolutely.
time out of the gates. And
Yeah.
and like I said, today she's on a on a trajectory. I had a guest last week who straight up offered to speak with her and give her a free session. And I kind of go,
Amazing.
is
Amazing.
that what's going on here
Amazing.
too? That had that, and
Wow.
but
But
the other
she
side of that
is,
is we can walk through this stuff. I can walk through this stuff today and not crumble.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to do that before going through the 12 steps and having the amount of spiritual growth I've had over the last 10 years. No way.
And one of the most powerful things we can do for another human is just empathize. I think
Love
that's what
them.
saves lives. Absolutely.
Love.
And
Love is
just
the
like,
absolute power.
absolutely. And what that says is, with me, you're safe. And those of us that have been through trauma, especially things that happen in childhood, the, it's love and safety, just giving that message
And
to the
safety. Yeah.
body, to the nervous system. You're safe. You're safe.
Yep.
You're safe.
And that's really
Then
no
it
different
can
for me
do, yeah.
today.
Yeah.
I need those two
Yeah.
things just as much today as I did when I was a little kid.
Don't we all? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think your daughter is one of the lucky ones. I know she's going through her challenges, but to have two human beings who can do what you and her mom did, which is clear their calendars and say, look, we might not know exactly the right thing to do here, but we love you and we're here for you and we're going to figure this thing out together. So powerful. She's so
Yeah,
blessed.
like on 3 days into that, she disappeared. She got out the window and she went out and she went and got some more, And and
Yeah.
my mom didn't understand this stuff the way that I do. Thankfully, people you're actually pretty fortunate if you don't understand addiction at the level that I do. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
You haven't had to
Yeah.
deal with it at
Yeah.
that level. But
Yeah.
so there was we did make a good team, and yeah, and you wonder. I'm pretty I'm a pretty open book today. I don't really care what I talk about. I don't have any shame wrapped up about that kind of stuff or about my
Yeah.
story or any of that. Uh, I do get a little concerned that maybe one of those two people might, but it's my podcast, I
Yeah.
guess, so I can do what I want to. And I don't think I ever say anything that's detrimental to anybody that hurts them.
Yeah.
Uh, so let's talk just a little about what you do today. What do you do like with this in your world of helping these other
Yeah.
people? Help me understand that a little bit if you have
So I do
time.
a few different things. Yeah, a few different things at present. So I finally listened to the what the medicine was saying about the work that I needed to do, which was going back to doing the one-to-one psychotherapy work. So a lot of what I find myself doing is inner child healing. I think from the different modalities that I learned over the years, through timeline therapy and the journey technique and hypnotherapy and compassionate inquiry, it sort of merged into this one process. So, sometimes people will come, and like I had a client recently, and he was coming because he was having these outbursts of anger in work, and he didn't quite know where it was coming from. So his conscious mind didn't know. It was, we all have these protectors and defenders that
Yeah.
prevent us from seeing what's in the subconscious and in our body. So we did this journey, and it brought him back to an experience. Actually, there was most of the time, about 80% of the time when I do these sessions with people, it will go back to something between the ages of about 0 to 7, something that happened there. This guy, it was a bit different though. Went back to when he was 19, and he found out that his younger sister had been abused, and it was a family member again, and it was a small town, so nobody wanted to deal with it, nobody wanted to talk about it, but he had all of
Under the
this
rug.
anger and couldn't go anywhere with it. So he was, he had kind of channeled his energy into his career. So he was quite successful with what he did, but lost people along the way, and would burn relationships along the way because he
And
would
that can be a
just,
drug.
yeah,
Work.
yeah,
You
yeah,
bury yourself into
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
100%. So he had a release in that experience, and we've done some work afterwards. And, he's finding he's just, we were talking about it and having a little bit of integration afterwards. And he was saying, oh, it's really interesting. I haven't, now that I think about it, I had this situation and that situation, and normally I would have blown the top, but I didn't this time, and I was able to manage it better. I had another client recently who, we did a little bit of psilocybin work with him, but his wife was about to leave. He had issues with alcohol, just, you know, dependent on all these different things that were really impacting his work, his life, his relationship. And the first psilocybin journey that we did, it took him back to when he was a young child, and how his mom used to, if there was a couple of siblings in the family. So if they were good, then the mom would give them some pocket money. And if they were not, she would take it away. So he learned at that very early age, he developed the belief that he was bad in some way. So that journey, that experience kind of made him see that and realize that that wasn't actually the truth of who he was. And so he was able to release that belief then, and move on. So a lot of the work
That's
that
the
I
thing, is
do from a
identifying
therapeutic,
this stuff.
yeah,
Identifying these things and getting access to them
yeah,
seems to be a real
yeah,
key. We can't see
yeah,
ourselves. We've suppressed that, and we can't see it. And without some help, I can't access that and then go, oh, okay,
that's it.
that's why I
That's it.
do this when that happens.
Exactly. Exactly. And then we make the unconscious conscious, and then we have the ability to work with it in a collaborative, compassionate way, as opposed to it controlling us unconsciously, and then us
Hmm.
behaving as a result of those patterns and those beliefs. So
That's exactly what
so
we
the
do here in 12 Step 2. Exactly.
right. So we're all speaking the same language, just coming at it from different
Yep.
angles. Which is beautiful. So yeah, the majority of the work that I do is, I suppose, inner child healing with people in a psychotherapeutic context. When I have the opportunity, I do like to use psilocybin as an additional tool, and it grows naturally on the mountains close to my childhood home here. We
Oh,
have
wow. Cool.
a species that, and
That'd
it's,
be trouble for me, maybe.
but you kind of think, and we, obviously legalities and all of that have to be very careful about and very mindful of. But sometimes I stand back and I look at it, and Ireland is a country that's still struggling with alcohol, with problems from alcohol, a lot of debts that are alcohol related, but
Really no
that's
worse
legal.
drug in the world.
Ah, isn't it? I
There's
know.
no worse drug
It's
in the world than the
just
one that seems to be legal every place.
exactly, exactly. And then you have these substances that can actually heal you and wake you up, but they're prohibited.
Yeah,
So,
no, no,
you know,
no.
so we have,
They grow out of the earth,
some work to do.
and that's, that case can be made for cannabis and stuff. I have a little bit, we're wrestling around in the States about legalizing cannabis and all that. And one
Yeah,
thing is, my favorite thing is this is not your grandpa's marijuana, though. The stuff that they're
yeah,
growing now is a complete different grade of what I
yeah,
had when I was in my 20s. But,
yeah.
it does come from the ground, and I guess, I don't know. Can you say the same thing about alcohol? I don't really think you can. More people, alcohol kills more people than any of the other drugs combined.
Absolutely,
We
absolutely.
had this supposed opioid epidemic in the United States in the past few years, but it ain't come
Yeah,
close to how many people are dying. It's like 1/5 of the people that alcohol kills. And we have an
exactly.
epidemic. Well, what about this one?
But we
Uh,
don't talk about that, because there's a system at play. There's,
there
a
is a system.
corporation, there's
Yep.
a business, there's an industry behind that.
Yep. We have a saying that
Yeah,
systems and institutions,
absolutely.
systems and
Yeah,
institutions that
exactly.
got our
Exactly.
control of us. We used to, when
Um,
I was a young man, I had a friend that had me going around and turning over cow patties, telling me that these mushrooms would grow under these cow patties, and we would look for them. Of course, when we would find some mushrooms underneath them, it was like, oh man, and I'm just not comfortable eating that.
no, no, no. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I know, especially under a cow patty. Yeah, just it's
I
not
get a
good.
lot of ads. I see ads for growing your own mushrooms
Mm,
uh, in
mm,
the States here, like even on
yeah,
Facebook and stuff, uh,
yeah,
and it does.
yeah.
It put the switch on.
I
But
know.
my personality probably would not be the thing for me to do.
And it's not for everybody. That's one thing that I've learned very much too. Like there's a healer that I go to, and he's amazing, and he does really profound spiritual work. And we talk about this sometimes. And he says, I think there's another way that I can reach that place, and I can do it through my spiritual practices and through my meditation. So I don't think it's for me. And I absolutely do think that we can, there are other avenues to reach that level of wisdom and unconditional love, and insight, and I think the more that we explore these different avenues, then the better it is for all of us. These are
Yeah.
just one.
Thankfully, we have all these different ones, and
Yeah,
the 12
yeah,
steps is one of them. It is a series of work
100%.
and things that get you through it without
Yeah,
using chemicals for people that have trouble with those things.
exactly,
And there's
exactly.
ways to do it,
Yeah,
for people who don't have trouble with those things.
yeah.
I always like to say, just for, I've sponsored over 30 people in 10 years through sobriety.
Wow,
And
wow,
that's around
wow.
3 per year. And I've also through the program for non-alcoholics. You was talking about anger. I had a father who had anger issues, and it would come out sideways on his 3 children when mom wasn't there, right? And
Mm,
he was
yeah,
powerless against it, just like we say in
yeah,
step one, we're powerless over alcohol, our lives
yeah,
unmanageable. He was powerless over his anger, and it
yeah.
made his life unmanageable,
It
and it
would
was
just
coming out
take over.
sideways on his, and he could not do anything about it. And I took him
Mm,
through this work, and it fixed him,
mm.
you know. And the one thing about like me,
Amazing.
I have to keep on, this is a funny thing I see about these people. We call them normies, the ones that don't drink and drug and all that. Uh, I have to keep on giving it away to keep it.
Yeah,
I have to
that's so
continue to
true.
work with
That's so
alcoholics to
true.
do that. But I've
Yeah.
noticed that these normies don't necessarily have to.
Mm,
Once they
mm,
get like the dose and they go through the work, and I still
yeah,
know him today, and he doesn't participate in this recovery program anymore. But his life has
mm,
been forever changed, and he's not doing that
mm,
behavior that he was doing because we've reached back there and figured
yeah,
out what the button was that got pushed
yeah,
that made him
yeah,
do that. And
yeah,
I mean, I, there's absolutely nothing in the world that's more fulfilling than to
yeah,
do the work that I'm doing today, where I get to help these
exactly.
people be better fathers, be better husbands, be better sons, that kind of stuff. It's just, there's nothing more fulfilling in my life. If I could do
And what
this
you're
and
doing,
if the bill still got
what,
paid and the lights came on and the gas was paid and the insurance was paid, I would do nothing but 12-step
yeah,
work.
that's beautiful. You found your calling, it's
Yeah, it is. I
beautiful.
found my purpose in life. I did.
Yeah,
That's what it allowed me to do. It allowed me to find my true purpose in life. And frankly, uh, I'm good at it. And I like being good at stuff, right? When I was a kid and I was good at playing basketball. I like being
yeah,
good at stuff,
yeah.
and
It's
when you find
amazing.
something you like doing and you're good at it, it makes you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely,
I
absolutely.
sidetracked you. You
But
was getting ready to go someplace.
the other thing that you're doing is you're breaking the patterns of generational trauma. That's what we're
Exactly.
doing. When, like in that guy that you were talking about, kind of, turning off that anger, figuring out what that anger switch was for him and healing it, then he's going to stop passing it on to the future generations. And this
Exactly.
is how we heal each other
This
and
is
how we
how we
heal the world,
change the world.
100%. Absolutely.
So with the psilocybin and that stuff, you need to be with these people. But do you do like do you do stuff like through Zoom and
So,
through other modalities where you
yeah.
work with
So,
people?
yeah. So with the inner child work, that's possible through Zoom, and I have quite a few clients as well where we'll just have regular therapy sessions through Zoom. Also, the preparation and integration work that can be done through Zoom as well. So if somebody is choosing to go to Peru or Colombia or whatever it is to work with ayahuasca, it's like when I went to Peru myself, oh my gosh, there was no preparation. I got there, they told me to drink some purgative water the morning of the ceremony, and then that was it. But when we work with these substances, it's for them to be able to be as powerful and as effective and as healing for us as what they have the capability of being. It's important for us to prepare our bodies, to prepare our minds, to prepare our spirits, to prepare our intention, so that we're coming to it with in the best possible way that we can. And then we get these insights, we have these experiences, these awarenesses, and often it can be confusing for people. They might see
Yeah.
something and then not know what to do with it afterwards, or have an experience that's more of a metaphor and kind of need to uncurl that and figure out how that fits in with their day-to-day life. And I think that's what truly honors these plant medicines, because if we just take them with the expectation that they're a panacea or for recreational purposes, and then go back and not allow them to be part of our day-to-day lives and part of helping shift our trajectory and finding our North Star, then we're disrespecting them in a way. We're almost causing a
I totally
disservice. So
understand it. Again, the parallel thing, we do the 12 steps in a ceremonial way. We make it,
yes,
and they tend to be preparation, execution, preparation, execution,
beautiful.
preparation, execution. That's the way the 12 steps
Yeah,
are laid out.
beautiful.
And so again, that
Yeah,
I get chills over here and other people offer me what they're doing. And as I can see, it gives me a deeper understanding of why and I keep on looking over that direction because I got a big book
oh,
sitting over.
fantastic.
There's hardly ever
Beautiful,
not a big book
beautiful,
within reach of me. Uh,
beautiful,
and
beautiful.
it helps
We
me
all
a
need
deeper
that.
understanding of that. And then that helps me better help my people, right?
Yeah,
Even using through
exactly.
this tool from what you've taught me,
Yeah.
it deepens my understanding about the tool I'm using and how it works.
Exactly, exactly. I find that a lot, just listening to other people and learning from other people the whole time. It just, it helps us to understand and more deeply integrate the work that we're doing, for sure. And sometimes, I don't know if you've had this experience, but sometimes I can learn something and get it at a certain level, but maybe when I hear it the fifth time or the 10th time, that's when I actually get it deep in my body and I go, okay, now, So sometimes we need the repetition and we need the people talking about the same thing, but from different angles and different approaches, because we all are at different stages of our journey too. Yeah,
We had old
it's
doctor
good.
here, and he had sponsored my sponsor. I mean, he's actually the treatment center over in Lowell, like the low bottom
Okay.
homeless folk treatment center. The main
Oh,
area is
wow.
named after this name. Named after this
Wow.
guy's name is Burns Brady. And Burns would say,
Wow.
repetition, repetition, repetition. My sponsor does perfect imitations of him. And that's, I need to hear it a number of times, and then
Yeah.
I go, bing, okay, all right.
Yes. Yes,
Now I see.
exactly.
And then again,
Exactly. It's
when I have a
beautiful.
different teacher come into my life and it offers me, because I still am convinced that we're all doing the same thing, just from, like you said, from different, that's another thing that another one of these old timers from over here used to talk always the angle of approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have this little different angle of approach.
Yeah.
And you
Exactly.
may be receptive to a certain angle of approach, but not to
Yeah.
mine, to somebody else's,
Exactly.
and vice
Exactly.
versa, and all this. And the better I can get, like anticipating my person's angle of approach that that person needs for me to come at them. Because I'm almost convinced that like a few of my sponsees think differently of me because I approach them from different angles, right? I try to meet them where they're at. And, and,
Yes,
and I didn't meet
exactly.
this guy, in the same angle of approach that I met this guy. And
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's
increase
the
your
empathy too.
increase your understanding and effectiveness.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, you know, I work with some leaders from organizations as well, and one model of leadership is situational leadership. And what that means is tailoring your leadership style based on the person and based on the situation. And it's the wisest thing to do to adapt your style based on what that person needs and what the situation requires. And I think it's not an easy one to hone, but it's really important and very powerful.
Yeah, I lean on my higher power to help guide me,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
to
yeah.
help. And so many times it doesn't feel like it's really me doing it.
Mm,
You feel like you're kind of having
mm,
an out of body experience where um, higher power is
yeah,
guiding me.
it's coming
And it's
through.
not like I'm
Yeah,
intellectually going, okay, this guy needs this. It's nothing like
yeah,
that. It is
yeah.
that you just go,
Wow.
okay, all right, here. Usually
Yeah,
hit to bounce off a couple times because you did it wrong a couple times, and the guy kind of
yeah,
rejects you a couple
yeah.
times, and you go, okay, I'll come in from
Let me
this
try
angle.
this way.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing.
So
Yeah,
tell
it's
me
just
about your book a
beautiful
little
though
bit,
to.
because I
Yeah,
know that's what
so
you're here
it's
to
thank
talk
you.
about.
Yeah.
I love
Um
these organic conversations, so I do.
me too.
It's my drug
I
of
really
choice today.
appreciate it.
It's my drug of choice. That's
Super.
I get high
Yeah.
having these exchanges between these wonderful human beings that are
It's
bringing light into the
beautiful.
world.
It's beautiful. I really appreciate what you do, and that you create the space and the platform for that. So yeah, so thank you. But yeah, the book it's really a story. It's a memoir. And I've had to change a few, names of people and things. But yeah, it's a story of when I got diagnosed with cancer and then needing to go through that journey of looking back over the previous 10 years and kind of going, okay, where did all of this come from? And looking at the different dynamics that showed up in relationships that I had and seeing that the root of all of that was childhood trauma. So it's childhood trauma kind of threaded through all these different experiences, and then culminating in this journey through cancer without chemotherapy and how I needed to tap into all these different sources to heal, because I just knew that pharmaceutical way wasn't going to be the way for me. And through that journey, it just not alone did it bring me physical healing, brought me spiritual healing, and mental and emotional healing, and I feel that it's been one of the most important things for me to do in this lifetime was to heal that generational trauma, and to be back and seeing my mom every day and having those conversations and healing that relationship, because that's been really, so critical for the past generation, for future generations, in our family. And it's brought me to a path where I'm, exploring what it is to live authentically. I for decades I would, straighten my hair every day, put on makeup and a suit, and then go into these environments and betray myself in little
Yeah.
ways. Say yes to things that were against my values and go along with things that something in me said, no, no, this isn't right. And so it's, the whole experience of cancer, of healing and finding these different paths of healing and the inclusion of psychedelics in that, it woke me up and made me sort of see, oh, all of, the conditioning and the programming from society. Okay, if that isn't right for me, then what is right for me? And I'm still uncovering that. As I said, the recent thing now has been this, therapeutic approach with using horses, or inviting horse as a collaborative therapeutic partner into sessions, and that's just been a beautiful unfolding of the journey too. And just getting to do the work that I love to do, the work like you that fills me, that lights me up, and that I feel so much more purposeful. And yes, I don't have what I had in Dubai. I had a beautiful house and 2 cars and a live-in nanny, and I had all of that, and go to these like fancy brunches on a Saturday. Don't do that anymore, and I find so much more fulfillment in like this morning I took my dog for a walk up the mountain, and I bundled up and wrapped up and had my hat on in this like really cold weather, and that for me was so much more enjoyable than any of that kind of shiny stuff that I experienced in Dubai. And none of that would have happened if it weren't for this journey of cancer. So I'm just really grateful. And part of the reason why I wanted to share the story though was to, like, I had an experience with an oncologist, and she looked at me, and I said to her, well, what's going to happen, doctor, if I don't do this? And she said, well, you have a son and you want to live, don't you? And I know how difficult it is for people when they're in that situation and they feel like they have no other choice and they just have
That's
to
almost like
follow
being
along
held
with what the
hostage.
doctor says. Exactly. And so for me, I really wanted to share that message of, it might be the right thing to do to go ahead with what the doctors are saying, but let's be the ones having dominion over our health and over our lives, and let's ask questions, and let's ask a functional medicine doctor, let's ask an energy healer, let's ask a therapist, let's ask all of these people, and encourage that as part of our healing journey, instead of just going one way with the pharmaceutical drug intervention. And often, even if we do choose to go that way, all of these other approaches can be something that supports this pharmaceutical intervention to actually work.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really important to get that message out. Take charge
because our stories are so
health.
important. Our stories are so important, each one of us. That's the reason why. I mean, ultimately, what the Spiritual Underground podcast is a storytelling podcast. It is people coming in and telling their stories.
Exactly.
And we always kind of have this little thing. If it will just at least help one person, right? We probably know it does better than that.
Exactly.
But that's
just
what we
one
say.
Person. Absolutely.
You hear it in 12-step recovery all the time that somebody will hear these speaker meetings and they will sit down and they don't understand where they're at or why they're here. But this person will tell their story and they will relate to it. And I'll go, here I am. Exactly. I watched my mom battle cancer for years, man. It's a piece of my trauma too. Was at 10 years old, they sent us out the back door, me and my brother, go play in the backyard. And being who I am, I pushed Neil out the back door and let it slam so they'd hear it slam, and I snuck around. And that's what's so wild is that it's in this very home. So I know where I was standing. I was standing right there. That's my mom was in the living room telling the aunts and uncles that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And I snuck in here, didn't hear it. And then my crazy mind ran away that my mom was dying.
Oh my God.
That's what I heard when I heard cancer.
Scary.
And she didn't. She beat that cancer.
Yeah.
But there was some trauma that went along with that because I didn't get, she eventually told me and Neil about it. But I'd already set something into my soul from eavesdropping that conversation.
Yeah.
And she beat cancer. I mean, I was 10 years old. She didn't die till I was 48. So there's a big old a window in between there. But what I learned to do the 12 steps is how I had kept my mom at arm's length my entire life because I was afraid of losing her any second. And she had throat cancer and she had skin cancer and she had this and that and another thing, And when I got to make amends, when I got sober and I was able to make amends to my mom, I did my best to convey that, and there was a lot of healing in that. I like to say, If you walk 50 miles into the forest, you got to walk 50 miles back out.
Yeah,
And
that's
uh
very
and,
true.
and and I don't think anybody escapes it.
I don't
Really.
think so. I don't think so. Not,
We all got our
the
stuff.
socialization process, exactly. I think it's shifting. So the more that we're able to support people to break those generational trauma patterns
I love that.
and to give them tools to be able to deal with what life shows up, then we're providing a safer place for people to be able to process life. And I think, I brought my niece, so she's 18. I brought
Oh,
her to a wellness day a couple of months ago, and a lot of
heck
it
yeah.
was, about healing trauma and that. And we were just walking out afterwards, and she looks at me and she goes, "You know what? I don't think I have a lot of childhood trauma." And I thought, well, you did. You grew up in a home where you and your sister were supported, were seen, were heard, were loved, where your mom and your dad are, they're doing everything that they can to support you both, to live as authentically as you can. They're not trying to change them in any way or shape them. They're just saying, okay, let you want to do this, let's support you. You want to do that, let's support you. So they're just doing their best to show unconditional love. And so it
Awesome.
is, but that generation, they're going to have their own stuff, though, that's different from what we had. So we look at the way the world is moving and moving with social media and AI, and how, as human beings, we're kind of separating from each other instead of coming together more in
When
community.
we
So that's
truly
going to
are
bring up
all
its own
connected.
challenges.
Yeah, and
We
we
are,
really are, truly are all connected. And I giggle
yeah.
at that a little bit because we all have our traumas at some level. I don't care how good your mom and dad are. I mean, even my guys that are doing a wonderful job at raising their kids, I don't know
Yeah.
that you can completely shield them. And trauma sounds like a really strong word, and it needs to be normalized a little bit more, that it's not like
Yeah.
violent trauma. Uh,
Yeah.
I,
Exactly.
I know that when we had to put down a dog when I was a little kid, that was
Mm.
traumatic,
Yeah.
and I
Exactly.
want I want to underplay those things, and I want to bury it.
Yeah.
And actually, what
Yeah.
the truth is it needs to be processed in a healthy manner. These things that come
Absolutely.
about,
And a
my
safe
guys come to
place
me
to talk.
in a safe
Yeah.
space. Yeah, we
Yeah.
in our fourth step, we do an inventory of our lives, and we kind of
Yeah.
wrap the word resentment around it because that's what the AA did. But I kind of tell my guys, let's make a list of everything that impacted who you are as a person today, as human
Yeah.
today. And they'll go, well,
Yeah.
I don't really have that much, I don't really think that much. And
There's
and
so
I ask them,
much.
the instructions are to sit down. You don't have higher power, whatever. Still, just ask higher power to help you access this, and then sit quietly for a few minutes, which is meditation.
Yeah.
Sit quietly for a few minutes, and when the stuff will start coming in, pick up your pencil and start writing it down. And
Yeah.
and these guys, I don't really have that much. We'll have a 125, 150 item list when they're, or more,
Yeah.
it's like, don't
Exactly.
much do you?
Yeah. And the environment to do that work is so important, because as I said, we have parts of ourselves, parts of our mind that are protecting us from accessing those memories, because that was a coping mechanism. That's how we coped when we were younger, by
Yeah.
suppressing them. Otherwise we wouldn't have been able to get up in the morning, go to school, go work, do whatever we needed to do. So it does take a very safe, empathetic environment to
Yep.
to allow people to do that
Yep.
processing work. And I
There's
think that's what
fertilizer.
the 12-step facility and that program allows people that safety to do that.
Yeah, he's got to trust me. He's got to trust that this man here is guiding him in the right direction so that he can access that
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
um, as time goes by, I see how important that relationship between me and my new guy is. That I
Yeah.
like. Another thing I like to say is, this stuff just happens, and I got to
Yeah.
discharge this negative energy that comes into me on whatever occasion. I have to be able to discharge this energy, this negative energy, to the universe through safe people. So I got to have safe
Yeah.
people to go, you can't believe what happened to me today. Uh,
Yes.
so it doesn't build up again, because we
Yeah.
especially as men, we tend to stuff our emotions and stuff everything that happens to us, and then it piles up, and it's up in my throat, and I can't hardly talk because I got so much crap
Yeah,
stuffed up in me. If I don't,
exactly. Get it
my
out.
sponsor and I do it every day. Every day
Oh,
we go.
wow. That's
Blah,
amazing.
blah. We do it the program app on a phone called Marco Polo. It's a
Okay.
video. It's a video
Yeah.
messaging thing, and we
Okay.
just every day, so that it never does pile up, even if it's little stuff, and you're almost making things up.
Yeah.
Just to
Yeah.
keep the slate clean as I can
Got to get
possibly.
it out. Absolutely. And, you guys are so fortunate to have each other to be able to do that with. And, I think for people to be able to find as best they can environments where they can do that, whether it's a group setting like a 12-step program, or whether it's a therapist, or maybe even journaling or writing, or
Journaling, yeah,
going out into the forest and telling a treat, but absolutely processing things and getting things out in a space where, if there are humans, that there's going to be minimal projection, you know,
yeah,
or perception, and I think that's so important for all of us to put that particular tool into our toolbox. Okay, where can I go to just offload when I need to? So important.
yeah. I've got dozens of men in my life that were really tight. Now I cannot be. It's just it's just unreal how
Yeah.
that you get to have that I get to have this, and he gets to be a part of it. Him and him and him, and we all have this big old loop. There's about 80
Yeah.
guys in our men's home group, and
Wow.
yeah, and now
That's
some of them
beautiful.
don't know how to walk into the circle, right? They're still out.
Okay.
There's like concentric circles that go around where people's comfort
Yeah.
level. And, I'm on the
Right.
inside circle looking out, going,
Come on
come
in.
on in, come on in. It's safe in here. You're okay.
Yeah.
And some do and some
Yeah.
don't, and everybody, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
to have to
Such a
be where
blessing.
I was to where I'm at today is just a miracle. So here,
Mm.
and I know we're getting ready to go on 2 hours. But a couple of months ago, my doctor for a few years has been telling me to get a colonoscopy, and I've been fighting it.
Oh, please go. Please go.
So she offered me
Um,
this thing where you go in a bucket and they test that,
okay.
and it and it
Okay.
and this is a bad thing. The thing that come back to me first said, "You're positive for colon cancer." That's the first
Mm.
note I got back, and then I got the note from the actual testing company that come back and said it's abnormal. This is not
Okay.
a positive, but you need
Yeah.
to get tested. You need to get a
Okay.
colonoscopy. Which
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
4 or 5 days with that positive
Yeah.
diagnosis off of the first piece of correspondence I got
That's
was a
scary.
bit upsetting. So
That's
yes,
scary.
in the beginning of January, I'm doing that. And,
Fabulous. Fabulous.
men are
And look,
terrible about their
there,
health care.
you know,
Oh.
but there are, I'm a really big advocate of just going through detoxing protocols as well, for because our environment is just so toxic. And when I went to a functional medicine doctor, he said he hadn't seen a cancer patient who didn't test positive for mold, for microplastics, and for
I'm terrible too,
parasites
man.
as well.
The amount of solvents and paints and other things like all that gasoline, oil, changing my
Yeah.
own oil, just all the
Yeah.
stuff the stuff that is at least very come in respiratory and come in through my hands. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wished I'd
So
have known
in
better.
the book, I think, and you can have a look at it, or I'll send it to you, but I do have a list of supplements that we can take, because, like, before I started this journey, even though I thought I knew a lot about health, I didn't know enough about detoxing and the right supplements to take. And in my head, it was very overwhelming and confusing. So then this functional medicine doctor that I worked with just made it simple and straightforward. And he said, you just take these supplements for 6 weeks, and then it's okay. And then just look after your diet. Um,
When
and
you
and so
first
that
said in
really
the beginning
helped
of this
me.
podcast that was off a colon cancer diagnosis, I went,
Yeah. Oops. Yeah, but you can do something about it, you know. And the good thing about where you're at is you're so self-aware from an emotional and mental perspective, which means that you're going to make sure that you're using the tools that you have so that you're not stuffing anything down, that you're not suppressing your emotions. So I think that puts you in a really good positive place, you know, to prevent, anything too bad from happening. And but yeah, I think, all of us, I would need detoxing at some point. And I don't necessarily mean the detoxing from substances, but just from the
Yeah,
environment that we
yeah,
live in.
yeah.
But there are simple protocols. And
My kid's
coffee
mom
enemas
does
are,
she's a detox person.
yeah,
Back when she was trying to get healthy when we were still married or not trying, she was doing this stuff. And back when
yeah,
then I was just poo-pooing everything she was doing.
yeah,
And like
yeah.
today, I'm going, okay, I'll listen to you now.
Yeah. And when I started doing coffee enemas, I said it to my surgeon, and he said, look, he said, I can't recommend that to you because there's no clinical evidence. I haven't seen the research papers around it, so I'm going to say don't do that. But my functional medicine doctor had mentioned it, and I did my own research, and what I saw seemed positive and it resonated. So I thought, let me go and try and do that. And yeah,
Plant medicine again, right?
it really helps.
It's
And
plant
I
medicine.
went for a, yeah, yeah, exactly. And I went back to the hospital. I have to go for these, 6 monthly checkups.
Sure.
And the last time I went, there wasn't even a single polyp, so it just kind of shows that the approach
Proof's in the
is,
pudding.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, go get it checked out. And it's not as uncomfortable as what you think. Like, it's a
Yeah,
local
I know it's
anesthetic. It's
not. And I
it's
hear all kinds of
nice,
people.
you know?
My sponsor has Crohn's disease and he gets them all the
Yeah.
time. And I mean, like,
Yeah.
and I hear other people, but I just have that male
I
thing in
know.
me that doesn't
Yeah.
want to. I get my teeth cleaned. I do lots of other things right. I do lots of things right. But
Yeah, I
this one
know.
here, I've resisted. So you've given me
Well,
a
I think
great
it's,
deal of comfort with it. To hear that you've actually had it and beat it.
hmm, yeah,
And
yeah. But the
I
the
don't think I
medical
have it.
professions, no, I don't
I
I
don't
don't get
think I
that
do.
feeling
My
either.
body is not saying that I do. I think
Hmm.
God tricked me into getting a colonoscopy by giving me that goofy test in a bucket thing, and then they.
And sometimes it's a little nudge going, oh, your body's important too, let's look after this physical vehicle that we have,
Yep.
and
Yep.
what
That's
tweaks or
what's with my
adjustments do
yoga.
we need to make? Yeah,
With my yoga journey,
yeah,
I mean, 12-step recovery does a lot for your mind and for your spirit. We do
yeah,
nothing for the body.
yeah,
And
yeah,
higher power put it in my life to be taking care of my body too. And so I'm
exactly,
understand that
exactly.
concept of mind, body, spirit,
Yeah.
and it's up to
And
me to take care of it.
yoga is also, it's really important because we store trauma in our bodies too,
Yep.
you know.
Body keeps the
Um,
score.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, holding certain yoga poses for, you know, there's yin yoga, I think, where it's a limited number of poses, but you hold them for longer.
Yep.
That
Yep.
can be very healing, and
Yep.
just releasing it from the body. And sometimes it even brings up an emotional expression too.
It will. Yep. I've drug my 12-step guys into yoga with me, and they will cry,
Yeah.
and they're not expecting to cry in the
Yeah.
yoga class,
Yeah.
and I think,
Yeah.
man, I'm telling you, this is way something different than just exercise, man. This is like
Yeah.
wringing your
Yeah.
emotions out, man. And that's a
Exactly.
fun thing too.
Exactly.
That, that,
Yeah.
that whatever.
Yeah.
I'll give credit. I can't take credit for any of this. This power grader myself has allowed me to offer this stuff to these guys, and I will take a little joy in telling them, "Told you so." Uh,
That's beautiful, though. Really beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for the
Websites,
work you're doing.
the book again. We're
Yeah,
going for
so
2 hours solid now. The Truth
oh
Trip.
my word, it hasn't felt like
I know I
that.
have so much fun doing this that
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's called The Truth Trip. So it's on Amazon, and my website is www.aylashepherd.com, AYLA shepherd.com, and there's more information
what's
there
your
too.
name, one
Yeah, yeah,
word.com. Okay. I want to make sure to put
exactly.
that stuff in
Yeah,
the show notes and stuff.
yeah.
I
Thank you
kind of
so
try to do
much.
stuff just in time delivery. So I really like to do that. Higher Power seems to accommodate it that we do our
Yeah,
podcast this week and it comes out. I put out new content every Sunday. So your podcast
great,
will come out next Sunday and then I'll send you some
great.
links. I really only
Thank
chase
you.
YouTube, Spotify, and Apple.
Perfect.
But
That's great.
it's on some other,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing distributes it to other audio only stuff, but I don't ever pay much attention to it. I mean, the other ones, except for the three main. Good deal.
Wonderful.
Well, I've
Well,
really
thank you.
enjoyed talking to you today.
I've loved it. Thank you so much, Dan. It's been such a
I
pleasure.
feel so
Thank you.
blessed
So
over
lovely.
and over and over
Thank you.
again to get to meet wonderful people like you and to get to learn from you and do this exchange where I know that at the end of the program, we've both grown as a result of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for what you're creating, not just for us, but for a much wider community. It's so powerful and impactful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, what time is it right there right now?
It is 2 minutes past 9 in the evening here.
Okay. It's 4:03 p.m. here,
Okay.
on a
Thank you.
Sunday
I
afternoon.
should let you go. Have an afternoon and go
That's
and
okay. Yeah.
enjoy. But thank
Thank you
you.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your
I will
evening.
do. I will
Thank you.
do. Thank you. And Merry Christmas.
Yep.
It's
Be here in
closing in
just a
on us.
second.
I know.
Holidays.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dan. We'll be in touch.
Good deal.
Always tried to be just
I'm
who
going to
they
end it.
want.